social service cannot kill poverty. It cannot. It's never worked anywhere and it's never going to work. Socialism is why Venezuela is a failed state today.
Yeah, Cuba.
Today, in North America, Americans and Canada are looking for immigrants for their economy because a lot of their citizens simply just sit down and get unemployment check every week. So they need immigrants to come and work for the economy to work. And that is why the immigrant is so important. Every year, they don't really like the immigrants, but it's important they have immigrants to work because their own citizens benefit from all of these social schemes, like Dr. rightly said, and they don't work. And you need people to work for the economy to move forward.
This is Souq business landscape. Now, federal government allocated less than 1% to poverty project. Yeah, people are talking, NGOs are talking, but let's get to hear this. The federal government plans to spend 206.5 billion on poverty alleviation related project in 2026 budgets, far below 1% of the proposed 58.47 trillion, total expenditure submitted to National Assembly. The allocation cut across selected programs explicitly targeted at poverty-focused in ministries, departments, agencies, and along provision captured under the service-wide vote. A review of project-level data in 2026 appropriation bill shows total poverty-related allocation at 206.5 billion. Now, against the proposed 58.47 trillion. The amount represents 0.35% of total federal expenditure for the fiscal year, underscore limited budgetary weight given to targeted poverty reduction initiative. Now, when compared with the proposed capital expenditure, 23.21 trillion naira of the poverty alleviation envelope accounts for roughly 0.89%. Analysts say the figure raises question about the scale of fiscal commitment to poverty reduction amid rising living costs and unemployment pressures across the country. Okay. Now, there has been a whole lot of story up and down, even in this particular side of it. Doc, over the weekend, we had this particular discourse on the group. And the question was, is China a socialist country? Is China a communist country? Now, let's bring this back home. Should we be focused on poverty alleviation, or should we be focused on getting the people to work?
Well, I think you already know where
you are going
where
to
I
go.
stand on this issue. Absolutely against anything called poverty alleviation funding, because it's actually not meeting or even working for the purpose for which actually government is setting it, because people who actually need the money don't get it. My experience on the field. So if PDP is doing poverty alleviation, it's giving to their party steward and giving to their party supporter in the villages.
Okay.
Other parties are excluded. Now it's APC turn to do poverty alleviation. It's the same process. So we're actually not alleviating any poverty. We are actually funding patronage. And that is what it is. And I don't think that is a systematic way to deal with poverty. Though globally, I am actually against all these social programs, because instead of actually encouraging people to work, we are supporting laziness. And I think that is what it is. There's a lot of people who need just 5,000 to do some job, and they are out there. Government can target them. And so, because we don't have data, it's difficult for you to actually know who is poor and who you are giving this money to. I think the only country in the world who has been able to successfully do a poverty alleviation project is India. And the reason is simple, because India has been able to number their citizens and give everybody a card, and banks are open for every Indian. They know the number of people who are actually poor. So rather than India giving money to individuals' hand, they actually pay subsidy now to the very poor Indians. And those people take it straight from government, and then they go and spend. But we don't have that data. So you have a situation, a friend of mine who was working, I think during the reign of late Akeredolu told me something. When they were doing this conditional cash transfer, 10,000 in Ondo State, he told me, you see, the people who have distributed it, who are also government agents, they take 2,000 and give 8,000 to the people. Now he was asking them, I said, why will you be taking 2,000? You're already okay. Now he said 2,000 in 1 million places amount to something. Now you can imagine the kind of thinking that surround this kind of poverty funding. So I think that if government really is interested in solving poverty, we should get the people to work. Not dashing people money. The example that I was sharing with people was Falike in Lagos here, was doing an empowerment program for some people in Ikeja. And these guys came to the venue. The people who were recruiting the guy to come to the venue to learn the skill, shared the money 60-40 with the people. And then the people actually came in there, signed in, but never learned the skill.
Which happens to be the most important part of the whole thing.
So this has been happening. Where you even find some people who were working because we didn't have data, they were enrolled in Empower, and they were collecting the 30,000, which of course government think was given to somebody who was poor, but they were actually working somewhere. So we don't have data. Until government sort out data issue, we should not be throwing this money away, because really it hasn't affected the rate of poverty reduction in Nigeria. If you look at how much we have spent from the days of Goodluck Jonathan till now, how much Nigeria has invested.
From the days of Babangida.
Let's even take it closer. From the days of Jonathan till now, how much government has invested in poverty eradication, and then we are getting poorer. I think we should think properly and see how we can get people to do basic things. I was sharing with the General Bureau for Public Service Reform, and I said, look, there's something we can do. We have enough arable land. Can government actually put this money together and take one big, massive land to say, okay, what we're going to do, we will be self-sufficient in rice production, and look for those young people that are poor and get them employed and give them a farmhouse where they can be productive, rather than throw the money away.
Okay. Before I come to you, let me ask you this same question. Now, social services, what's it called? Action Aid is saying that, okay, good and fine, that we are spending too less on social services, and they are warning that in 2026, more people are going to get poor. Same thing was coming from PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. They are saying 61% of Nigerians are living under poverty, and it's going to get worse in 2026, at the end of 2027. Now, let me pull this same thing. Government over the last 2 years has created industrial hubs. Government over the last 2 years has created labs, direct labs. They've gone ahead and done some direct money swap with China. A whole lot of policy has been done that people are supposed to get there and access. Why are people not accessing it? Talking about agriculture, Niger State government said, if you can come, we'll give you land. It doesn't matter where you are from. We'll give you a place to stay. If you plant and harvest, we'll buy off you. Why are people not taking advantage of all this?
Yeah, but that's it, because there's so much free money around. That's the way I see it. And it's not just Nigeria alone. Recently, there was a debate in the United Kingdom about whether government should continue to fund people who are hale and hearty with social schemes. Because you find that the number was increasing. People go to line up and take money and then, of course, become lazy. And that's a big problem. And that's why I say civilization is going down in the West. And that's what's also happening to most African countries. We need to be able to get people to work. I grew up in an environment where people work, do hard labor to earn a living. Now, what you have, enough young people who should be in the farm, they sit on the road. You can take a walk around Lagos to see where people this early morning that they are drinking or smoking. That's not poverty.
They are growing an industry.
That's laziness. So we should not fund laziness. That's my view.
Okay.
Action Aid have their perspective on it. PwC have their perspective on it. And I have not seen anywhere in the world where people throw money at poverty and it killed it. And I don't think it is possible.
Okay. Let's now come to you. You are well traveled. China did what most nations were unable to do. in the shortest period of time, they pulled an entire population out of poverty. How can we replicate that here in Nigeria?
The best way to replicate that in Nigeria, number one, is to make sure that we have reforms, transformative reforms that will catalyze productivity. That is the most important thing. Then when we have that, we have to invest heavily in our infrastructure. From your submission, I believe that is what the editor is talking about, how we are funding a lot of capital projects and leaving social service. Because, like Dr. rightly said, he said it all, social service cannot kill poverty. It cannot. It's never worked anywhere and it's never going to work. Socialism is why Venezuela is a failed state today.
Yeah, Cuba.
Today, in North America, Americans and Canada are looking for immigrants for their economy because a lot of their citizens simply just sit down and get unemployment check every week. So they need immigrants to come and work for the economy to work. And that is why the immigrant is so important. Every year, they don't really like the immigrants, but it's important they have immigrants to work because their own citizens benefit from all of these social schemes, like Dr. rightly said, and they don't work. And you need people to work for the economy to move forward. So, and in Nigeria, we romanticize poverty too much. We hate prosperity. And somehow people just think that people can dash their money out of poverty. It's never worked and it will never work. Like Doctor said, if you drive, I don't want to say all over Lagos, if you drive from Lekki-Epe Expressway, you see at least 1,000 people begging for money on that stretch. On that stretch.
1,000 able-bodied
people on that stretch. About 50% of them are kids that are supposed to be in school. Now, let's assume that their parents cannot put them in school. I know for a fact that those kids, if they learn how to be a organizer by the roadside, they will get their 3 square meal and be able to go home with at least 1,000 naira every day. Because to gauge one tire in Lagos today is 1,000 naira. So they will be able to go home with at least 1,000 a day.
Why will a kid not be in school in Lagos when public school in Lagos is free? Absolutely and totally free. My wife teaches in a primary school in Lagos State here. They are begging children to come to school. And in short, the other day, he was telling me their director came and said they are not doing enough to go beg kids to come to school. So you can understand the mindset of our poverty. There's not actually the fact that infrastructure is not even there. He told me what provisions that government is making every day to see that these kids come to school. But yet they are still on the street, like you said.
And local government chairmen are giving back to school packages to kids, which consist of pen, pencil, books, backpack, feeding bottles, what have you. Free school uniforms. They are funding this in their numbers. And it is so shameful that we are feeding a monster that, God forbid, is going to consume us one day. Because the elites, the most educated people, are the people that live on that axis, that Lekki-Epe. And those are the ones that give 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 naira cash to kids that are supposed to be in school. In their own initiative, they think they're doing something noble. They think they're doing something good. But they are encouraging poverty. They are encouraging what will eventually turn to robbery on that axis. And God forbid, that might turn to a terrorist cell, because this is how Boko Haram started in the north. It's by Almajiri kids that were left on the streets without guidance, without monitoring, that people took, brainwashed, and turned them against the state. So if we are not careful, we might be breeding another set of criminals. God knows what they will be up to in the next future. And Lagos is the center of excellence. I believe the Commissioner of Education is listening, the Commissioner for Women and Children, and the governor itself, the First Lady. We cannot have 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old on the streets begging on the Monday morning. And this is child trafficking in broad daylight, because these are parents hiding somewhere in the shade. They send the kids to go beg the money, and the kids give them money. This is child trafficking, child labor, and I don't know any other more federal crimes they are committing in broad daylight, with police watching, with LASMA watching, and we see all the elites passing and patronizing this.
Okay. Some time ago, that was fashion last time. It was total man. You can't see kids or beggars on the road, especially on that corridor. For those that were apprehended, they were either sent to a place to go work, and those that were not willing to do that, they were sent to the closest state that looked at what language they spoke, although several states came and spoke about it and were negative about it. If you have a child in the US and that child is not in school, once it's observed, the state come and take the child from you.
Yes.
How can we push for this kind of legislation here? Because if we want to fight poverty, we have to fight it from its root, which happens to be in the mind.
Right. It's simple. I know for a fact that we don't have enough money to be able to fund a state-owned home for the orphanage. I believe so, because with over 20 million kids on the street across the country, if not more than, but that is the official number that somebody guessed. We cannot fund it. But we can improve on our adoption law to make it easy, so that government can temporarily hold these kids, and intended parents. There are so many people. Either their kids have left home, they are home alone. We have rich people in their 60s, or their kids are in college and they have a big house and they have so much resources and they are willing to adopt people. But the system makes it so difficult to adopt in this part of the world. So we can do a reform where people can take up kids like that. We can do a reform where factories can take up kids and have an agreement where they go to school in the morning and they work at the factory in the evening. There are so many things that we can do, but leaving those kids on the streets in harm's way, there goes teenage pregnancy, there goes raping, there goes so many unimaginable things that happen to those kids on the streets. And these are kids with potentials that you can't even imagine, that can change the fortune of this country. So government, I know we cannot fund an orphanage that will raise 20 kids, but we can work around how we can let Nigerians that have the well-to-do to be able to adopt them.
Okay. For those that have to work, they have to be above 18. If they have to work in a factory, they have to be above 18. But as
in China, you have kids in their tents working, assembling toys, assembling whatever. As long as they go to school,
they don't necessarily have to do
manual labor.
Manual labor, and even everywhere in the UK, even secondary school children who are less than, they go to do some
summer jobs.
Yeah. Summer jobs. So it's just training people to learn to earn. That is not, they're not employing them to be working perpetually. Okay. But you see these guys on holidays, rather than allow them to roam the streets, you get them to do something for themselves, and then they start to create their own economy. And I think that's the way the world is actually wired. You see somebody, like here now, they say they are doing career guidance and counseling. If people, you see in secondary school, they ask you, or primary school in the UK, and say, what do you want to do? So I want to be a lawyer. During holiday, they send you to a law firm to go and see how lawyers work. And then you come back to school to come and tell your experience. And some come back and say, I don't want to be a lawyer. Some people who want to be doctors, they get to do internship for maybe 2 weeks and come back and say, we don't want to do law again. Then they change their career. That's the way to mentor children. And I don't think that can be qualified for child labor.
Okay. So the whole idea of child labor is a design of the West. And China has defied that, because we have 9-year-old, 10-year-old making cell phones, making toys. And we have seen how that has changed the fortune of China. As long as they are well compensated one way or the other, and they are learning in the process. And that's how they grow to become great people. In Nigeria, we churn out graduates that are confused adults, because when they become graduates, it's actually the first time they are experiencing real life and how to actually make a naira. And that is a problem.
Okay. While we are looking at that issue, let's now backtrack. The presidency of our last president, the late Buhari, the World Bank gave us a little above $500 million to be used as handout. And this was actually on paper handed out, which means we have to now repay a debt of 500 naira that didn't give us any profit. Do you think that we should still ever go back to that kind of governance?
Well, I don't think so. You see, because I also work in a social space, I understand what this reality is. At a point in our church, I have to say, we don't need to adopt case. You see, I was still telling my wife yesterday, there was this particular guy who was a security at our gates. I looked at his credentials and I said, oh, you good. Why are you doing this? I said, I couldn't get to school. And I said, but there's so much you can do. So we arranged for him to get to the Open University. So he started the course. And somebody was willing to pay, but he was not willing to read. And all he was relying on was the fact that the auntie will always continue to send money. They send the school fees. He used it for other things. And there was a day the auntie called me and said, look, this boy is not making progress. I really want him to go to school so that it can be of help to the parent. So I called him to my office and I sat him down, spoke to him, and I thought he has repented. And I said, look, you think you are punishing somebody. You're actually doing yourself. And it was not a year. That auntie that was supplying him money passed out. And I asked him, who won, who lost? You see, this idea of giving people money only encourages laziness. And Africans are not known to be lazy. I was telling an auntie of mine who came from the US yesterday, and I was saying, what's government doing? And I said, look, you see, in this part of the world, there's so much pressure on government. Government is doing a lot, but we can't see it because of the way the mindset of our people are wired. We have very weird way of thinking these days. I told him, I said, when I was growing up in the village, we were building structures for government to come and take over. And I was telling her, I remember a certain maternity home we built in my community. We were going to Benin to go and beg the government in Osadebe House so that they can post a doctor or a nurse to that place. We built a post office because we needed one close to us. The police station in my community, we built it. Went to beg police authority to send police to our community.
To man it.
The secondary school in our community, we built it. And this time I'm telling you, there was no light in my village. There was no government road that was passing through that place. So how did we get to this point now that if government now want to build a school in my same community, and the young people there say that they are youth, they need to be settled?
Right. And I dare say that despite how big the economy in the Western world is, that is the same community building thing that you just explained is still the way it works now. You go to the biggest hospitals, you see the name of families that are funding a whole building till now. And that is the biggest economy in the world. You see their ambulances donated by the rich people. You see, the only thing government is doing is that there is an incentive for social services in your taxes. When you are doing your taxes, they forgive you taxes when they see that you do some social spending. That is that. But that is not enough. People genuinely want to help their community.